Your morning decides everything. Long before the world places demands on you, long before problems start knocking, long before distractions begin calling your name, the direction of your entire day is already being shaped by what you choose to do the moment you wake up. Your morning is not just a routine, it's a foundation. It's the starting point of your mindset, your productivity, your faith, and your belief in what is possible. If you miss the morning, you miss the momentum. And if you miss the momentum, you miss the day. The first hour of your morning is a prophecy over the next 24. Most people wake up and let life decide for them. They let notifications decide. They let stress decide. They let emotions decide. But the people who win at life, the people who rise higher, the people who create impact, they decide before the day begins. They wake up with intention. They wake up with clarity. They wake up understanding that the morning is not something to survive, it's something to command. When you discipline your morning, you create breakthroughs that show up in the evening. Victory never begins at the end of the day. It always starts in silence, in obedience, in structure, and in sacrifice. The world calls it luck when success happens. But what they don't see is what you did at 5 a.m. They don't see the prayer you prayed, the journal you wrote, the goals you reviewed, the mindset you strengthened, the discipline you honored. They only see the fruit, not the roots, and the roots grow in the morning. Your mind is never more moldable than it is when you open your eyes. The morning is when the world has not yet spoken, and your own fears have not yet awakened. It's the moment when your mind is clear enough to receive ideas, instructions, and inspiration that you would miss in the noise. If you give your morning to chaos, the rest of your day becomes reaction. But if you give your morning to purpose, the rest of your day becomes intention. Morning habits don't just create good days, they create good lives. You don't rise because of what you do once in a while. You rise because of what you do consistently. Every powerful person you admire is built on quiet disciplines that nobody sees. Reading before the world wakes up, planning when the house is still silent, speaking affirmations before the mind has time to doubt, moving the body before fatigue has time to negotiate. All these small steps combine into a life of giant results. And when your morning is aligned spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, something supernatural happens. Favor starts meeting you in unexpected places. Opportunities show up that you didn't chase. Answers appear that you didn't search for. You start walking into rooms prepared for you long before you arrived. A morning grounded in gratitude, purpose, and connection with your Creator unlocks a day filled with alignment, peace, and direction. But there's another truth. What you avoid in the morning matters just as much as what you do. If you fill your first hour with comparison, entertainment, or negativity, you sabotage your own day before it even begins. If you start by checking messages, scrolling feeds, or consuming noise, you have already given your power away. Protect your morning like a treasure chest, because that's exactly what it is, the storage place for your potential. Your morning decides the pace, the energy, the confidence, and the standard for the rest of your day. You can start your morning as the old you or as the becoming you. You can wake up reacting, or you can wake up creating. You can wake up repeating yesterday, or you can wake up designing tomorrow. Everything shifts the moment you realize that your morning is not a routine, it's a launch pad. And once you learn to command your morning, the world will no longer command your life. Your morning sets the tone for your destiny, because the very first thoughts you think, the very first words you speak, and the very first actions you take form the emotional and spiritual temperature of your entire day. Most people underestimate the power of the morning because they treat it like a transition instead of a transformation. They roll out of bed and drift into the day without realizing that the atmosphere they create in those first moments becomes the environment they live in for the next 24 hours. If your morning is rushed, your day becomes chaotic. If your morning is negative, your day becomes heavy. If your morning is distracted, your day becomes reactive. But if your morning is intentional, your day becomes powerful. If your morning is grounded, your day becomes focused. If your morning is built on gratitude, faith, clarity, and purpose, your day becomes aligned with the person you are becoming. The truth is, destiny is not something that suddenly appears. It's something you walk into step by step, decision by decision, morning by morning. The world tries to convince you that destiny is shaped by one big moment, one big opportunity, one big breakthrough. But destiny is shaped long before the big moment ever arrives. It's shaped in the quiet hours when no one is watching. It's shaped when you choose discipline over comfort, focus over distraction, purpose over laziness. Every morning you are casting a vote for the future you desire or the one you dread, and your destiny listens to your morning. When you rise with intention, your spirit gets louder than your doubts. Your purpose gets louder than your excuses. Your vision gets louder than your fears. You start moving from a place of design instead of default. You start living from your calling instead of your circumstances. You start leading your day instead of being led by it. That's how destinies are built. Not by chance, but by choices. And not just any choices, but the ones you make before the world wakes up. Your morning is your daily reset button, your daily chance to align, to choose again, to focus again, to believe again. It's the moment where you declare how the day will serve you instead of how you will survive the day. When you honor your morning, you honor your destiny. And when you honor your destiny, you begin to live at a level the old version of you could only imagine. Discipline in the morning creates breakthroughs in the evening because the seeds you plant at the start of the day always return a harvest. Sometimes hours later, sometimes weeks later, but they always return. Most people look at the visible results and call them miracles, blessings, or luck, but breakthroughs are almost never born in the moment they appear. They are born in the quiet, unseen decisions you make when the sun is barely rising. They are born when you choose to wake up on purpose instead of in panic. They are born when you decide to move your body, strengthen your mind, feed your spirit, and direct your focus before life has the chance to distract you. Morning discipline is not just about routine. It's about mastery. It's about mastering your emotions before they dictate your choices. It's about mastering your priorities before the world assigns you its agenda. It's about mastering your mind before fear, procrastination, or doubt try to negotiate your potential. When you command your morning, you are telling your entire day who is in charge. You are choosing direction over drifting. You are choosing purpose over passivity, and that creates a ripple effect that shows up later when you need clarity, strength, creativity, or courage. Breakthroughs rarely happen while you are doing the big things. They happen because you are faithful with the small things. The disciplined morning where you read instead of scrolling becomes the wisdom that saves you from a bad decision later. The disciplined morning where you pray or meditate becomes the peace that steadies you during chaos. The disciplined morning where you review your goals becomes the reminder that keeps you from settling. The disciplined morning where you work out becomes the energy you rely on when the day gets heavy. What seems small in the morning becomes significant by evening. When you start your day with discipline, you create momentum. And momentum is the force that carries you through obstacles that used to stop you. You begin your day in strength. And strength becomes the soil where breakthroughs grow. You begin your day in focus, and focus becomes the light that reveals solutions you couldn't see before. You begin your day in alignment, and alignment becomes the pathway that leads you toward opportunities you didn't even expect. The evening breakthroughs, the unexpected phone call, the closed deal, the solved problem, the inspired idea, the moment of favor are just the visible reward of the invisible discipline you invested when everyone else was still asleep. Morning discipline doesn't just change your schedule, it changes your life. It sharpens your identity, elevates your standards, and builds the version of you that can handle the blessing you've been praying for. You don't rise because of what happens at the end of the day. You rise because of who you choose to be at the start of it. When you honor your morning with discipline, the evening will honor you with breakthroughs. The mind is most moldable in the morning because it wakes up before your doubts do. In those first quiet moments of the day, your mind is like soft clay, open, impressionable, and ready to receive whatever you press into it. The world hasn't spoken yet. Fear hasn't stretched its arms yet. Old habits haven't had the chance to pull you backward. You're in a state where your subconscious is still listening, still absorbing, still shaping. What you feed your mind in that fragile moment becomes the framework for how you think, act, and respond for the rest of the day. This is why your morning thoughts matter. When you wake up and choose gratitude, your mind begins looking for things to appreciate. When you wake up and speak affirmations, your mind begins searching for evidence to support them. When you wake up and visualize your goals, your mind begins aligning your actions with that picture. You are literally programming the direction of your life before your feet even touch the floor. But the opposite is also true. If the first thing you do is open your phone, compare your life, or let negativity pour in, your mind absorbs that too. And because it's so open in the morning, whatever enters first grows deepest. That's why so many people feel overwhelmed before the day even starts. They've handed their most moldable mental moment to distractions, noise, and emotional clutter. The morning is the one time of day when your mind is not yet guarded, not yet defensive, not yet rigid. It's the moment when new beliefs can take root faster. It's the moment when change feels possible. It's the moment when your spirit and your mind are aligned enough to receive fresh ideas, divine inspiration, and inner clarity. What you choose to think in that state becomes the foundation your day is built on. If you train your mind in the morning, your life becomes easier in the afternoon. If you strengthen your mind in the morning, your decisions become sharper throughout the day. If you direct your mind in the morning, distractions lose their power later. This is why successful people fight for their mornings. They know that once the mind is shaped, the day follows its form. Your morning mind is a gift. It's your daily opportunity to rewrite old patterns, to elevate your beliefs, to reset your energy, and to condition your thoughts for success. When you master the messages you allow into your mind in those first minutes, you begin mastering the life that flows out of it. Morning habits compound into life results because transformation is never built in sudden leaps. It's built through accumulated consistency. What you choose to do every morning, even when it feels small or insignificant, becomes the silent architect of your future. Most people underestimate the power of a habit because they judge it by the size of the action instead of the size of the impact it creates over time. A 5-minute reading habit doesn't look life-changing today, but compounded over years, it reshapes how you think. A quick morning workout doesn't feel like a breakthrough, but compounded over months, it reshapes your energy, discipline, and confidence. 10 minutes of prayer or meditation may seem simple, but repeated daily, it reshapes your peace, your clarity, and your connection to purpose. The habits you practice first thing in the morning become the habits that guide who you are for the rest of the day. They influence your decisions, your emotions, your resilience, and your standards. You don't rise because you do something dramatic once. You rise because you do something intentional consistently. Small habits create big identities. Big identities create big lives. And the birthplace of identity is found in the quiet repetition of what you choose to do every single morning. Morning habits also compound because they create momentum. When you start your day by doing something that strengthens you rather than weakens you, something that pushes you forward rather than pulls you backward, something that builds you instead of drains you, you carry that energy into everything else. A disciplined morning often leads to a more focused afternoon. A purposeful morning leads to more confident decisions. A peaceful morning leads to more stable emotions. A productive morning leads to more powerful results. Success is rarely a mystery. It's a pattern. And patterns begin in the morning. The truth is, your morning habits are either compounding for you or compounding against you. There is no neutral. Every day, you either invest in your future or delay it. Habits like scrolling, snoozing, rushing, and reacting also compound, but they compound into frustration, stagnation, and regret. Meanwhile, habits like gratitude, prayer, planning, reading, exercising, and reflection compound into clarity, strength, discipline, and opportunity. When you understand that every morning habit is a seed, you start treating your mornings like a garden. You plant what you want to grow, and you remove what you don't want to harvest. Over time, your mornings stop being routines and start becoming rituals. Rituals that build character, rituals that sharpen vision, rituals that align you with the life you're called to live. Morning habits don't just shape your days, they shape your destiny. They write the story of who you become. And when you honor your mornings with the right habits, your life begins to reflect the person you've been quietly building all along. A spirit-led morning positions you for favor, because when you start your day aligned with something greater than your own strength, you begin walking into moments, opportunities, and breakthroughs that cannot be explained by effort alone. There is a supernatural advantage that comes when your morning is anchored in faith, gratitude, and divine guidance. Before the world makes demands on you, before challenges try to pull you off course, and before discouragement has the chance to whisper in your ear, a spirit-led morning grounds you in purpose, clarity, and identity. It reminds you who you are, whose you are, and what you're capable of. It creates a shield around your heart and a direction for your steps. When you take the time in the morning to align your thoughts, your emotions, and your intentions with the wisdom and presence of your Creator, you begin the day from a place of strength instead of struggle. You walk with confidence, not confusion. You move with peace, not pressure. Your decisions become clearer because they are not driven by fear or urgency, but by discernment. You start noticing doors that others walk past. You start hearing ideas others ignore. You start sensing opportunities others are too distracted to recognize. That's what favor looks like. Things clicking that shouldn't click. Help arriving that you didn't ask for. Solutions showing up at the exact moment you need them. A spirit-led morning also softens your heart to receive direction. Sometimes the guidance you need for the day doesn't come through logic. It comes through stillness. It comes through listening. It comes through surrender. When your spirit is settled in the morning, the rest of your day stops feeling like a battle you're fighting alone and starts feeling like a path you're being guided through. You move differently when you know you're not moving by yourself. You handle challenges with patience. You handle people with grace. You handle responsibilities with calm. That inner alignment attracts outer favor. People often wonder why certain individuals seem to be in the right place at the right time, why opportunities seem to chase them instead of them chasing opportunities. It's not coincidence, it's alignment. A spirit-led morning places you in harmony with your purpose and your assignment. And when you're aligned, you don't have to force outcomes. You don't have to beg for attention. You don't have to fight for significance. Things begin to flow because you're flowing with the one who directs the flow. When your day starts with a spirit-led foundation, everything you touch carries a different energy. Your words carry weight. Your decisions carry clarity. Your presence carries peace. Favor doesn't come because you strive harder. It comes because you start from the right source. A spirit-led morning doesn't just prepare you for the day. It positions you for doors you could never open alone. It positions you for timing you couldn't orchestrate. It positions you for results that exceed your effort. The world chases strategies, shortcuts, and secrets. But the greatest advantage you can have is starting your morning led by something higher than you. That's where favor is born. In alignment, in surrender, in gratitude, and in listening. When you begin your day guided by the Spirit, the day begins to guide itself in your favor. What you avoid in the morning matters as much as what you do, because the wrong inputs can cancel out even the best intentions. The morning is the most vulnerable, impressionable part of your day, and anything you allow into that space has the power to shape your mindset, your energy, and your emotional state long before you have the strength to filter it. The truth is, most people don't lose their day because they didn't plan enough. They lose their day because they allowed the wrong things to enter their spirit too early. The first battle of the day is not productivity, it's protection. When you avoid negativity in the morning, you protect your clarity. When you avoid rushing, you protect your focus. When you avoid comparison, you protect your confidence. When you avoid noise, you protect your peace. What you don't allow in the morning determines whether you start the day centered or scattered, empowered or drained, grounded or reactive. Many people feel exhausted by noon, not because they worked hard, but because they let emotional chaos into the first hour of their day. This is why avoiding the phone first thing matters. Not because the phone is bad, but because it floods your mind with the world's agenda before you've connected with your own. News headlines stir fear. Social media stirs comparison. Messages stir pressure. Notifications stir urgency. All of that enters your mind before you've even taken a breath. And now you're already playing catch up with your own peace. Avoiding certain conversations in the morning matters too. The mind is fragile when it first wakes up, and arguing, complaining, or reacting too early creates mental turbulence that follows you for hours. Avoiding certain thoughts matters as well. If you let worry be the first voice that speaks to you, anxiety becomes the lens through which you see the whole day. If you let past failures replay in your head, your confidence is weakened before you even brush your teeth. You've surrendered your power before the day has even begun. Avoiding the wrong habits is just as powerful as practicing the right ones. Skipping the snooze button is an act of discipline. Avoiding clutter or chaos in your environment preserves your focus. Avoiding unhealthy foods first thing sets the tone for better choices later. Avoiding laziness in the morning prevents guilt from following you the rest of the day. Everything you avoid is a statement of what you value. Your morning is sacred space, and sacred space must be protected. The things you refuse to entertain in the morning are just as important as the things you choose to embrace. Your future is influenced not only by the habits you practice, but by the distractions you reject. Growth doesn't just come from addition, it comes from subtraction. It comes from eliminating what weakens you so you can amplify what strengthens you. When you begin to guard your morning with intention, you stop living your life on defense. You move from reacting to creating. You move from surviving to building. You move from being influenced to influencing. Protecting your morning from the wrong inputs isn't just self-control, it's self-respect. And that self-respect becomes the foundation for a day that supports your purpose instead of sabotaging it. Your morning is not just a moment in time, it's the master key to the life you are building. Every choice you make at the start of your day becomes a statement about the future you expect, the standard you hold, and the person you are becoming. When you rise with intention, discipline, clarity, and alignment, you set in motion a chain of events that lifts you above distractions, above discouragement, and above the limits of yesterday. Your morning shapes your mindset shapes your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. If you learn to honor the first hour of your day, the rest of your day will begin to honor you. If you protect your morning, breakthroughs will start to find you. If you lead your morning with your spirit instead of your emotions, favor will go ahead of you and open doors you didn't even know were there. And if you build habits that grow you, discipline that strengthens you, and thoughts that elevate you, your life will reflect that investment with multiplied results. The power to transform your day and ultimately your future starts the moment you wake up. Your morning decides your direction, your energy, your confidence, and your focus. It decides whether you repeat your past or rise into your potential. It decides whether you drift through the day or dominate it with purpose. And when you choose to rise intentionally, consistently, and consciously, you don't just create better mornings, you create a better life. So commit to your mornings. Protect them, honor them, lead them. Because when you win the morning, you don't just win the day, you win your destiny.